Rich from Mountain Soda Garage. We're at the Edge Power Sports today. We have our new 2024 Catalyst 154, 3-inch track, no electric start. It's such a cool new sled. I'm really excited to get this thing out in the snow this year. But first thing we want to do, we wanted to weigh this because I've weighed a number of sleds before. Cap claims that this is quite a bit less than the Pro Climb chassis that it's replacing. So we're going to try and weigh it wet. All right, so we got our Catalyst all full of gas and oil, completely full to the top. Look in there, you can see the gas is all the way full. Let me pull the cover off. Our oil tank is completely full of oil. So we got our scales zeroed out, so we don't, and we have an extra belt on it. So, all right, so let's lift this thing up, see what our weight is on this thing. 3-inch track. It's a 154. Got the whole thing coming off the ground, and we are at about 503 pounds, which is really, really impressive. So that's super impressive. If a sled that's 503 pounds full of gas and oil, I don't think I've ever weighed any late model sled that weighed even close to that. The closest sled I ever have is my 2020 Chaos 155, and it weighed 509 full of gas and oil. And so for this thing to weigh 503 is super, super impressive. This is going to be a super fun sled, and they're saying the 800 motor is actually going to weigh a little bit less than the 600 motor. So when the 850 comes out next year on this thing, it's going to be really a good sled. So I can hardly wait for that. Going to get this thing out in the snow here pretty soon. So, okay, now we're back in the Mountain Soda Garage. Now, no video about sled weights would really be complete unless you had other snowmobiles to really compare it to. I've weighed a number of snowmobiles over the years, both in this garage and over at the Edge Power Sports. And it would probably only be fair to compare the Catalyst with some of the other sleds that I've weighed over the years. So let's kind of look at a few of these. We go back to the first year of the early release Ascender, the gray one. We had one of those in the shop, weighed it, and this is full of gas, full of oil, spare belt, kind of like I do all these weights with. But this one is a 162, came in at 547 pounds, which is pretty respectable. I mean, if you consider it holds a gallon more fuel than the Catalyst, and it also is a 162. It's probably in the 538 pound mark. So still 30 pounds more than the Catalyst was. If we go a couple years newer, in the Arctic Cat lineup, we weighed my Alpha. My Alpha was also a 162. It also had the Ice Age spindles on it. Other than that, it was all completely stock, other than it had the wrap on it. And I did weigh it before and after the wrap, and the wrap added about 3.5 pounds. So 3.5 pounds with the wrap, about 1.5 pounds for the Ice Age spindles, probably about 6 pounds, or the 165 track versus the 154 track on the Catalyst. All said and done, when my Alpha weighed 550 pounds like in these pictures, if you subtract that other stuff to kind of make it comparable to the Catalyst, we're about the same as the early release Ascender 800 was, which is about 535 pounds. So still 30 pounds more than the Catalyst, which is pretty phenomenal, which is probably pretty close to what Arctic Cat is claiming the weight loss with the Catalyst chassis over the Ascender chassis. I mean, about 30 pounds less, which is pretty amazing. But the last thing let's look at, comparing to another brand, I mean, probably the lightest mountain machine on the market right now is Polaris's 9R. It's kind of their flagship backcountry, lightweight, kind of normally aspirated high power machine. This one, I weighed when I first got it. It's a 2023. It's a 155, 2.75 track. It was a Chaos model when I first weighed it. I've kind of gone through it and done a full lightweight build on this now, so it's about 50 pounds less than when I got it. But when I first got this, completely full of gas and oil, it was about 505 pounds. So really close to what the new Catalyst is. So great for Arctic Cat being as light as they are and being right in there where Polaris is with their lightest machine on the market. So the 858 comes out next year. It's supposed to be a little bit lighter than the 600 motor that's coming in the current Catalyst. So we'll probably see under 500 pounds a wet weight ready to ride on a 154 3-inch track on the Catalyst next year with the 850 motor, which is going to really be a phenomenal sled. I can really hardly wait for that snowmobile. And I'm really excited to ride the 600 this year, but I think the 858 next year is really going to surprise a lot of people with how good it is. So if you're an Arctic Cat guy, the wait is over for a really phenomenal sled. And I think Arctic Cat really hit it out of the park this time. And I owned my Arctic Cat dealership when we went from the M Series chassis to the Pro Climb, and it was such a disappointment. We were so excited for the Pro Climb. It came out, and it just was not what anyone hoped or thought it would be compared to what the M Series was. So we have had high anticipation for what Arctic Cat was going to do next. The Catalyst, I think, has gone over and above kind of what I thought they would do. And so I just hope they keep the momentum going in the coming years with building upon this chassis with the motors they have and everything else. So it's going to be a great year and a great next year, kind of seeing what Arctic Cat does compared with Ski-Doo and Polaris. They're all really phenomenal brands. I own all three of them, and I love all three of them, kind of for different reasons on each one. So hope you join us next time on Mountain Solar Garage, and we'll see you next time.
You can't resist fresh snow, can you?